What if the strangest symbol in ancient spirituality is not a symbol of death, but of the only thing that never truly dies? A serpent bites its own tail and forms a perfect circle. At first, it looks simple, but the longer you look, the more disturbing it becomes. This creature is not fighting an enemy. It is consuming itself. It is hunter and hunted, wound and healer, ending and beginning. This is the Ouroboros, one of the most mysterious symbols in human imagination. It survived for thousands of years because it says something language can barely hold. Life feeds on itself, time returns to itself, and every real transformation requires something old to be sacrificed. The word Ouroboros comes from Greek roots understood as tail devourer, or the one who eats its own tail. But the definition is only the doorway. The deeper question is this: is existence a straight line moving toward an end, or a circle returning to its source? To understand it, we begin in the ancient world, especially Egypt. In Egyptian sacred imagination, the universe was alive, rhythmic, and filled with invisible forces. The sun did not simply rise and set. It died into the west, traveled through the hidden world of night, and was reborn in the east. That cycle was not just astronomy, it was theology. Death could be a passage, darkness could be the womb of renewal, and the serpent, because it sheds its skin, became an image of danger, protection, regeneration, and hidden wisdom. Circular serpents appear in Egyptian funerary and cosmological imagery. Egypt did not own every later meaning, but it gave the ancient world a foundation for the idea that life, death, and rebirth belong to one mystery. The serpent biting its tail does not merely say, "Things repeat." It says something more unsettling. The end is made of the beginning, and the beginning already carries its own end. Modern people are trained to think of time as a straight line: birth, growth, goals, aging, and disappearance. But the ancient world often saw time as rhythm. Seasons return. The moon vanishes and comes back. Seeds fall into the earth and rise again. The Ouroboros belongs to this older vision. It does not deny change. It refuses to see change as random. Decay becomes compost. Loss becomes initiation. Endings become thresholds. The circle does not mean nothing changes. It means change may be circular, even spiral, bringing us back to the same lesson at a deeper level. Maybe that is why the symbol feels so personal. Most of us do not suffer only from events. We suffer from cycles, the same fear, the same wound, the same old self trying to survive after it has become too small. So here is the first question the Ouroboros asks you. Is your life moving in a straight line, or are there cycles that keep returning until you understand them? Comment your answer, because that changes the way you see this symbol. In the Western esoteric tradition, the Ouroboros becomes especially powerful in alchemy. And here, it stops being only a cosmic image and becomes an inner one. Alchemy is often misunderstood as merely the attempt to turn lead into gold. But in the esoteric imagination, it also became a language of spiritual transformation. The laboratory was inside the soul. The metals were states of being. The fire was purification, pressure, crisis, and awakening. One famous alchemical image shows the Ouroboros with the Greek phrase hen to pan, meaning the one is the all. This is a key to the entire symbol. The serpent consumes itself because consumer and consumed are not ultimately separate. The process and the substance are one. The beginning and the end belong to the same living totality. In my opinion, this is where the Ouroboros becomes uncomfortable in the best possible way. It suggests that transformation is not always about adding more to ourselves. Sometimes transformation happens when life forces us to digest what we already are. Pride, fear, false identity, old stories, and attachment to a version of ourselves that has expired. This is the hidden violence and mercy of the symbol. The serpent is not killing itself in the ordinary sense. It is sustaining a process. Something must be broken down so something deeper can be released. The form must loosen before a higher form can appear. That is why the Ouroboros is not the same as a simple infinity sign. The infinity sign is elegant and abstract. The Ouroboros is alive. It has teeth. It has hunger. It shows eternity. As an organic process that includes decay, pain, renewal, and embodiment. The serpent is ambiguous across spiritual traditions. It can represent wisdom, healing, temptation, danger, poison, medicine, and hidden knowledge. In some Gnostic currents, it could be linked with awakening. In Orthodox Christian readings, with temptation and fall. In esoteric Christianity, it can point to trial, wisdom, descent, healing, or redemption. The point is not to force all traditions into one meaning, but to see why the serpent is never shallow. The Ouroboros gathers that ambiguity into a circle. It says, wisdom may pass through danger, renewal may pass through loss, and the sacred may appear through the very image that frightens us. This is why the symbol resonates with Hermetic philosophy. In Hermetic thought, reality is often understood through correspondences. Above and below, spirit and matter, macrocosm and microcosm. The human being is not merely trapped inside the universe. The human being is a small universe, reflecting the larger order of the cosmos. Seen this way, the Ouroboros can represent circulation between the highest and the lowest. Spirit descends into matter. Matter is refined back towards spirit. The invisible becomes visible, and the visible becomes a doorway back to the invisible. The circle is not just around the world, it is inside the human being. If you enjoy deeper explanations that connect ancient symbols with history, spirituality, psychology, and esoteric philosophy, leave a like on the video. It helps this knowledge reach people searching beyond the surface. You can see Ouroboric echoes in Kundalini as hidden serpent power, cycles of rebirth in Indian traditions, Jormungandr encircling the world in Norse myth, and mandalas representing wholeness. These are not identical meanings, but they show humanity returning to the same grammar: the circle, the serpent, and hidden power. Carl Jung took alchemical symbols seriously because he believed they revealed deep structures of the psyche. To Jung, the Ouroboros could express totality, the unconscious, the union of opposites, and the process through which a person becomes more whole. Psychologically, the Ouroboros can be seen as an image of the self-contained psyche. Everything is inside the circle: light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, creation and destruction. It is wholeness, but also enclosure. And not every circle is freedom. Some circles are prisons. This is one of the most important secrets of the symbol. The Ouroboros can represent eternal renewal, but it can also represent repetition without awakening. A person can be trapped in their own loop, feeding on the same emotions, repeating the same mistakes, and calling it destiny when it is actually an unconscious pattern. So the question is not only, what does the Ouroboros mean? The deeper question is, am I being renewed by my cycles or consumed by them? There is a difference between a sacred cycle and a compulsive loop. Nature repeats in order to regenerate. Trauma repeats because it has not been integrated. Wisdom returns to deepen itself. Fear returns because it has not been faced. When I understood this, I felt that the Ouroboros was not only an ancient emblem, it was a diagnosis. It shows us the places where we are evolving and the places where we are secretly eating ourselves alive. In spiritual anatomy, the Ouroboros can be understood as a symbol of circulation within the human being. Consciousness descends into experience. Experience becomes memory. Memory becomes identity. Identity becomes limitation. And if the person awakens, that limitation becomes material for transformation. This is the microcosmic Ouroboros, the soul entering the world, forgetting itself, suffering through separation, gathering knowledge and slowly returning to its source with awareness. Not as the same innocent being that began the journey, but as something ripened by the journey. That is why the key symbol can be read through the perennial tradition, not because all religions are identical, but because many traditions recognize a shared pattern. The visible world points to invisible principles. The human being reflects the cosmos, and the path of return is also self-knowledge. But there is a final layer. The serpent creates a boundary. Inside the circle is a protected space. Outside the circle is the unknown. The Ouroboros can represent containment. Energy without containment becomes chaos. Knowledge without integration becomes madness. Power without wisdom becomes destruction. Ancient symbols were not merely decorations, they were containers of meaning. The Ouroboros holds paradox without resolving it too quickly. It says, "You are mortal, and yet something in you seeks eternity. You are changing, and yet something in you watches the change. You are made of endings, and yet every ending contains a seed." So what is the Ouroboros really? The serpent of time, the circle of return, the alchemical vessel, the unity of opposites, the self-consuming ego, the womb of rebirth, the prison of repetition, the key to renewal. It is a warning and a promise. If you do not become conscious of your cycles, they will consume you. If you do become conscious of them, the same cycles can transform you. And now we return to the beginning. A serpent bites its own tail. At first, it looks like death, but perhaps the ancients saw something we have forgotten. Life does not preserve itself by avoiding endings. Life preserves itself by passing through endings without losing its essence. The seed must break. The skin must be shed. The night must swallow the sun before dawn can appear. And the self you think you are may need to dissolve before the self you are becoming can finally breathe. So maybe the Ouroboros is not telling us that everything repeats forever in the same way. Maybe it is telling us that every ending asks a question. Will you return unconsciously to the same pattern, or will you return transformed? Comment which cycle in your life you feel is closing right now, or which one is asking to be transformed. Sometimes naming the cycle is the first step to breaking its unconscious power. And if this video helped you see an ancient symbol with new eyes, subscribe, share it with someone who feels there is something deeper behind the symbols of the world, and continue through the playlist on screen now. The next symbol may be the missing key that makes this one even clearer.